defenders destroyed a Russian Ka-52 helicopter and 2 Orlan and Supercam UAVs. Rocket and artillery units hit 2 enemy control points, 3 ammunition depots, 3 positions of anti-aircraft defense systems, and 4 e-warfare stations. The military says the enemy continues to focus its main efforts on an offensive in the Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka directions. More than 60 enemy attacks were repelled in the past day, with Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka remaining at the epicenter of hostilities. The enemy launched 3 missile strikes and 29 airstrikes, also firing 51 MLRS salvos. Further missile and air strikes on the entire territory of Ukraine remain highly likely. In the Volyn, Polisia, Severshina, and Slobozhanщina directions, the situation has undergone no significant changes as no signs of the enemy offensive groupings being formed were spotted. The Russian Federation continues to use Belarusian airspace and military infrastructure. The enemy shelled the settlements of Tyria, Lyanovka, and Pekinyo in Cherniv region, Serodinabuda, Stukalovka, Bezlivka, and Volfine in Sumy region, as well as Androbovka, Udik, Chervonozoria, Veteran Kozaka Lopen, Lipsy, Neskich, Ortsov, Sibin, and Bakov in Kharkiv region. On the Kupiansk axis, the settlements of Topoly, Faholovka, Drikna, Mezhitivka, Kupiansk, Kucherovka, Krokmaln, and Berestov of Kharkiv region and Novoselivsk and Stelmakivka of Luhansk region came under enemy fire. In the Lyman direction, the enemy launched unsuccessful offensive efforts in the Nevsk and Serebryansky forestry areas. Mikivka, Nevsk, Belohorovka in Luhansk region, and Terny, Sarykin, Torsk, Spern, and Rozdalivka in Donetsk region were hit by artillery fire. In the direction of Bakhmut, the enemy is trying to take full control of the town, continuing to storm it. Also, the enemy undertook unsuccessful offensive efforts in the area of Bodanivka and Ivanovsk. Defense forces repelled nearly 20 enemy attacks on the said section of the front. More than 15 settlements were subjected to enemy shelling, including Vyzhikivka, Minkivka, Orhovo-Vasilivka, Novomarkov, Ryhorovka, Bakhmut, Ivanovsk, Chasiv Yar, Novodmitrovka, Bilohora, Klemenbyk, Toretsk, and Shumiov Donetsk region. On the Avdiivka and Marinka axis, the enemy was on an offensive in the Novokalinov, Avdiivka, and Marinka districts of Donetsk region, with no success. They launched over 25 foiled attacks near Marinka alone. At the same time, Novokalinov, Berdiki, Yastikin, Avdiivka, Netilov, Pervomaysk, Krasnohorovka, Hirhivka, Marinka, and Pobyeda also came under enemy fire. The Russians had no offensive attempts in the Shakhtarsk direction. Unmanned aerial vehicles were actively employed to spot artillery fire that affected the settlements of Novomikhailivka, Bulater, Prekistivka, and Velika Novosilka in Donetsk region. In the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson directions, the enemy is building up defensive lines, fortifying positions. The Russians opened fire at over 35 settlements. Among them are Vromivka and Novopil of Donetsk region, Malinivka, Zalaznik, Heliopolsk, Molotokmaka, Novopavlovka, and Kamiansk in Zaporizhzhia region, as well as Novoalexandrovka, Havrolivka, Novoberyslavl, Kozetsk, Mykolivka, Lvov, Ivanovka, Antonovka, Stepanivka, and Kornobayevka in Kherson region. The enemy forces continued to use the medical facilities of the temporarily captured territories for their own purposes. The local clinic of Mala Bolozerka, Zaporizhzhia region, was converted into a military hospital. Currently, Russian military doctors operate in the civilian medical facility. They provide their services exclusively to Russian military personnel. As of April 2nd, about 80 WIAs were undergoing treatment in the facility. Russian forces are advancing in 3 directions but continue to concentrate their main efforts on an offensive in the Bakhmut direction, the General Staff of the Ukrainian military said to reporter. The General Staff said there had been unsuccessful offensive actions conducted in the Zaporizhzhia, Avdiivka, and Lyman directions, while Ukrainian forces in Kupiansk, Novopavlovsk, and Kherson were defending themselves. Russian forces near Bakhmut are increasingly using aerial strikes as they continue their advance on the city in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region, the General Staff said in a report earlier on January 22nd. It reported dozens of air strikes across Ukraine on January 21st, but the number of attacks reported on January 22nd was lower. The armed forces of Ukraine have formed 3 strike UAV units. The combined team, which will perform tasks in the Northern Operational Zone, is staffed with personnel who have undergone appropriate general and specialized military training in Great Britain. That's according to the press service of Joint Forces Command. Ukrinform reports. The armed forces of Ukraine are improving their combat capabilities. In particular, 3 strike UAV units have already been formed. Thanks to the support of our foreign partners, the units were equipped with SUVs, modern satellite communication means, as well as Ukrainian-made strike drones, Command wrote on Facebook. Play video. As noted, the strike UAV combined detachment arrived in one of the areas of the Northern Operational Zone to perform their combat missions. The unit underwent appropriate general and specialized military training on British soil as part of the anti-RFLEX operation. The unit is able to perform tasks at the operational tactical level. The unit bears the name VIY in honor of their fallen comrade in arms. The government supported the implementation of a 2-year experimental project on defense procurement of Ukraine-produced unmanned aerial systems. The solution is believed to speed up Ukraine's victory and develop the drone market in Ukraine. After consultations with the General Staff of the Armed Forces, the Ministry of Defense concluded 16 government contracts with Ukrainian UAV manufacturers. In 2023, the ministry plans to allocate about 20 billion Ukrainian hryvnias to this end. According to the General Staff, the Russian military carried out 5 airstrikes on positions of the defense forces compared with 27 airstrikes the day before, and shelling from multiple rocket launchers in at least 20 instances, down from 55 reports of shelling the day before. Russian forces also launched a missile attack on critical infrastructure in Zaporizhia, the General Staff said. There were no reports of casualties. The General Staff also said Ukrainian forces struck areas where enemy personnel have concentrated, as well as to ammunition depots. Wagner Group mercenary soldiers are playing a significant role for the Russian side in the battle for Bakhmut. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told reporters on January 20th that the private military company was literally throwing bodies into a meat grinder to capture Bakhmut and the town of Soledar about 20 kilometers away. Military analysts have said that while the capture of Bakhmut would have symbolic significance for Russia, it would not be important from a strategic point of view and would not result in any significant shift in the war. Kyiv has called on its Western partners to provide more weaponry, including heavy tanks, especially German-made Leopards, as Russia appears to be readying for large-scale operations beyond Ukraine's Donbas region. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock indicated that a stalemate over providing the Leopard tanks is nearing a conclusion. She said Berlin is ready to authorize Poland to send its Leopard tanks to Ukraine. If we are asked the question, then we will not stand in the way, Baerbock told LCI television after a Franco-German summit meeting in Paris. We know how important these tanks are, and this is why we are discussing this now with our partners. We need to make sure people's lives are saved and Ukraine's territory liberated. U.S. Representative Michael McCall said earlier that the United States should agree to send Abrams tanks as requested by Germany to break the stalemate and unleash the Leopard tanks. McCall also said Russia's decision to appoint General Valery Gerasimov to take charge of the Ukraine campaign means that Moscow is going to start a major offensive on the eastern flank in the Donbas, and tanks can help stop that. The Secretary of Ukraine's Security Council, Oleksiy Danilov, agreed with the assessment in an opinion piece published by Ukrainian Pravda. He said under Gerasimov, Russia is concentrating resources, raising reserves, restoring combat capability, and looking for the most vulnerable areas of the Ukrainian front. Based on recently announced military reforms, Moscow is also preparing for an extended conventional military threat outside the Ukrainian theater of war, according to British intelligence. Britain's defense intelligence made the assessment on January 22nd in commenting on Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu's announcement this week that reforms would add 1.5 million personnel to the military within 3 years and re-establish 2 military districts in Russia. The plans signal that the Russian leadership highly likely assesses that an enhanced conventional military threat will endure for many years beyond the current Ukraine war, British intelligence said. However, it added, Russia will highly likely struggle to staff and equip the planned expansion. Ukraine has undertaken a concerted effort to develop tactics to disperse its air defense capabilities and operate them in shoot-and-scoot mode since the Russian invasion of Crimea in 2014. By 2022, Ukrainian forces had trained extensively to disperse aircraft and air defense units out of major airfields. Ukrainian troops started vacating several critical air defense assets and ammunition stockpiles likely to be targeted by Russia a week before the invasion, and ramped up their efforts in the 72 hours preceding the Russian Aerospace Force's initial salvo of missiles, successfully saving them from attack. As the war unfolded, Ukrainians demonstrated the ability to operate their air defense M batteries as pop-up units rather than fully formed batteries with several support vehicles. This smaller, less detectable footprint posed severe challenges for Russian targeting. Ukraine's ability to keep these systems in play reinforced Russia's problems. The presence of SAMs forced the Russian fighters to fly low to avoid detection, but at low altitudes, the Russian fighter aircraft began to suffer significant attrition from man-portable air defense systems, MANPADS. Ukraine, in anticipation of Russia's air campaign, had diligently acquired a variety of MANPADS from the United States and other European partners and distributed them to Ukrainian forces in large numbers. The Ukrainian Air Force had also adapted. It had trained its pilots to fly their fighters low and exploits terrain to avoid radar detection, and aircraft maintenance crew had practiced servicing their fighters amid hostilities when access to regular maintenance facilities was denied. These two factors enabled Ukrainian fighters to augment the resistance generated by Ukraine's air defense units. Russian organizational weaknesses further compounded its failure. Russian intelligence could not keep pace with Ukrainian air defense units' dispersion tactics and instead delivered accurate strikes that impacted just 3 to 10 meters from the intended aiming point on locations long since vacated by Ukrainian forces. Additionally, Russian BD-8 processes seem to have suffered from a deeply held confirmation bias that assumed any action ordered and carried out must have succeeded. Such bias facilitated the Ukrainian reconstitution of mildly damaged assets. Russia's performance and Ukrainian tactics hold an important lesson for U.S. decision-makers about the exertion and utility of air power. The Russia-Ukraine war has shown that gaining air superiority requires the ability to continuously monitor and integrate information on the disposition of adversary forces promptly, smartly match weaponry to targets to ensure a high kill probability, and conduct unbiased BDAs to inform retargeting priorities. While the U.S. Air Force has demonstrated the capacity to do these tasks, it may be challenging to perform them in the future against a technologically advanced and determined adversary. The crucial lesson suggested by the limited available data suggests that if a determined and clever opponent decides to deny a superior force control of the airspace, it can do so. Despite its technological inferiority, Ukraine has demonstrated that even an air force with precision strike capabilities can be denied air superiority. These lessons demand that the U.S.